This weekend in our nation's capital, we were reminded that the only thing more American than baseball and apple pie is apparently deadly, unavoidable gun violence. It was the middle of the sixth inning between the Washington Nationals and the San Diego Padres when the sound of gunshots outside the stadium sent 33,000 fans into a panic. Parents hid with their children behind seats in the dugout, even while others sprinted for the exits. Police are calling what happened a shootout between two cars just outside the stadium. 3 people were injured. Also in Washington, just the night prior, a 6-year-old girl named Naya Courtney was shot and killed in a drive-by that injured 5 others. Naya would have started first grade this fall. Joining us now is Jake Sherman, founder of Punchbowl News, and Charlie Sykes, editor-at-large of The Bulwark. Lucky for us, both are MSNBC contributors. Guys, I'm going to start with this video. I'm sure you guys have seen it, of a young lady who survived the shooting on Saturday, and I want to get your thoughts on the other side.
I just saw people looking that way, and I didn't know what was going on until I heard someone say get down, so I just started going under the seats.
Oh my gosh, how are you feeling?
It was my second shooting, so I was kind of prepared, because I always am expecting something to happen.
It's a national embarrassment, and I don't know if I'm more angry or sad. Charlie, what are your thoughts? You're a baseball fan. These are the kinds of things that you go to. What are your thoughts upon seeing that young lady's reaction to having her life endangered again at age 7?
Yeah, that soundbite. It was my second shooting. We have a generation of children who are used to this sort of thing. Look, I don't want to be too cynical about all of this, but I'm having the flashback to the aftermath of the massacre at Sandy Hook, where you had 26 people killed, including 20 children. And I keep coming back to that because if that didn't shock the conscience of the nation, if that did not move the political needle, what would? And I think that was, for me, kind of a breaking point, the recognition that we were not going to deal with this in any sort of a coherent way. So, yes, I mean, the numbers are horrific. Murders are up by 23% in the District of Columbia. Last year was one of the deadliest years in decades in major cities, and we're beating those records. More than 50 Americans are dying from gunfire every single day. And yet the prospects, and I'll defer to Jake on this, the prospects that Congress will actually take any meaningful action have to be close to slim and none. And again, if Newtown didn't shock the nation into action, why would we think this would be any different?
Yeah, Jake, we've had these shootings now. They're regular. We had them at grocery stores. We've had them at concerts. Mass shooters were stopped. They were foiled. People who are likely planning to engage in a mass shooting at the Major League Baseball All-Star game in Las Vegas. Is anybody in Congress offering anything other than thoughts and prayers at this point? Or is this just something where they sit there and they wait for the news cycle to end, they hope it's not them or their district, and we keep moving?
So broadly speaking, the answer is no. I mean, we've been, as Charlie and you both point out, we've been through several cycles, about 15 years or so, or 12 to 15 years or so, of major gun violence across the country, mass shootings with somewhat some regularity, and Congress has been unable and unwilling to put together a package that can get the votes that are needed in the Senate. It's not a problem in the House with Democrats in control and a simple majority that passes things in the House. It's a problem in the Senate. Now, it's not only a problem with Republicans in the Senate, it's a problem mostly with Republicans in the Senate, but there are conservative Democrats who have been there's no proposal on the table, so they're not really saying that they won't vote for it, but there's just a lot of hurdles here, right? I mean, there are Democrats who are conservative who come from states with a big gun culture who are not willing to go as far as some others. So listen, this is not an issue that's getting any closer to resolution in any way, shape, or form, no matter what has happened over the last 15 years.
So, Jake, I'm going to continue with this. Earlier last month, the president came forward and said, hey, we've got $350 million. We've got extra money in COVID relief where local constituents, can hire more police officers and everything else like that. Do you think that strategically the Democrats are being foolish by buying into this sort of crime wave narrative? Because, quite frankly, while crime has gone up, in the middle of this pandemic, we're still significantly better off than we were in the 90s, let alone the sort of RoboCop 80s. Do you think that, being tough on crime is going to help the Democratic Party moving into 2022?
It's a tough question, to be honest. I've heard it both ways. I mean, perception is reality in politics, right? So if people feel like crime is getting worse, then political actors, politicians, and political parties are going to react to that and are going to try to counter that narrative. And I would say that statistics don't, I hate to say this because I'm going to come across like a cynic, but statistics don't always win races, right? I mean, we live in a culture where people believe what they believe and there's not much begging off of them. And frankly, the defund police narrative, which has been going on obviously for a bunch of years in some small pockets, not most Democrats, small pockets of the Democratic Party. And and I'm just relaying what Democrats tell me, it has hurt them. It has made them seem like they are soft on crime, soft on law enforcement, and polls show that. I mean, polls in both parties show that. This is not just Republican polls, but we did have a Republican poll this morning in Punchbowl News AM, which showed, frankly, that Republicans believe they are winning the fight on law enforcement. So, again, perception is reality. Democrats feel like they're behind the 8 ball when it comes to showing that they're tough on crime, tough on violence, and they feel like they have to overcorrect for that in some way, shape, or form.
I got to say this because, as I pointed out, and I asked you this very quickly, Charlie, you don't have any Democrats running on defund the police. Is this thing that Republicans keep saying, is this what they want to believe? Because objectively, numerically, defund the police is not something that has actually hurt Democrats, but they keep telling themselves it has, and Republicans seem to believe it.
Well, it did hurt. It did hurt them in 2018 and 2020. Look, I do agree with what Jake had to say there. And just ask Eric Adams, who's going to be the next mayor of New York City. His victory in that primary, was really a red flag. That yes, even in bright blue New York, New York City, people are concerned about crime. You can show them the statistics, but they're looking around and they're not feeling safe. And when they're not feeling safe, they are going to go for the candidates that have the most credibility. So Eric Adams should be a very, very important figure for the National Democratic Party, and they should learn the lesson of his success in New York City.
I see your Eric Adams, and I raise you a Carolyn Bordeaux, who was attacked as defund the police and still won a Republican district in Georgia. Jake Sherman and Charlie Sykes, thank you so much for spending some time with us.